Hello, everyone, and welcome to our rundown of Revolution Rumble. It has been a long and winding road. It feels like everyone in RevPro is at breaking point right now. They're just ready to get in there and let loose, and it all comes to a head this Sunday at the Revolution Rumble at York Hall in Bethnal Green. As always, I'm joined by Andy Quilden. Andy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, it feels like everything's built to this moment over the last few weeks, doesn't it? We've been saying that there's been a real intense atmosphere in the air, as there kind of always is leading into these big York Hall fight nights, so to speak. Tensions are high in the RevPro locker room, but now more so than ever, because of course the clues in the title, the event's going to be headlined by a 30-man over the top rope Revolution Rumble match with a winner getting the epic encounter of their choice. There's so much to unpick from that, and so much to unpick from the action-packed card that we've got for you this coming Sunday at York Hall, Bethnal Green.
Absolutely. This whole event is poised to change the trajectory of Revolution Pro Wrestling going forward, and no match more so than the namesake, that Revolution Rumble. But before we get to that main event, we have some incredible matches on the undercard as well. I can just pick anyone at random, and it's going to be amazing to talk about. So why don't we start with the dream match? As soon as this match was announced, tickets went flying off the shelves. It's the current New Japan World Television Champion, Saber Jr. going one-on-one with Michael Oku. And Mike has said, I'm always the guy who's ready to go above and beyond. I'm now here to prove I'm simply the guy. This is a match he's wanted for a long time. It's one that the RevPro fans have wanted for a long time. And what better place for it to happen than at York Hall?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is, you said it, it's a dream contest between two of the best that the UK has to offer, the world has to offer, and two people that really call Revolution Pro Wrestling their UK home. And I stress the term their UK home because for anyone who's seen Michael Oku's trajectory, I think it'd be very fair to say that he's going to be taking over the world in the very near future. But it'd be nice to think that he can always call Revolution Pro Wrestling home the same way that Saber Jr. Has done and will continue to do. And I feel that, there is a lot to this contest. Listen, Michael Oku, he's someone who's been through the wars as of late. And he's going into this match at less than 100%. And he's someone who said, look, I've never gone in to a professional wrestling match. I think he alluded to the fact that the last time he was 100%, it was 2018 in Cleethorpes, right? He's not been 100% for the whole time we've known him in Revolution Pro Wrestling. And that's because he has that mindset, that heart, that determination to go above and beyond each and every time. But in the last few weeks, we've seen Oku in some all-out wars. I mean, many people argue it could have been started in that contest in Birmingham with Gabriel Kidd, where we saw pretty much devastating consequences as both men suplexed. It was like a suplex reversal outside the ring. Both men came down with a sickening thud. Oku has been showing signs of wear and tear since then, and he could have taken it easy, but that's not his style. And since that point, he's been in all-out wars. And few people will forget the end of that contest against the driller Dan Maloney, where he came down with that frog splash hard, hurt his shoulder. He was cleared to continue wrestling, which I think was a mistake to continue wrestling. And that led him to an encounter with Jordan Breaks, who perhaps stylistically is the closest opponent you can get to Saber Jr. And Jordan Breaks employed a systematic breakdown of Michael Oku's body, and perhaps more specifically, that injured shoulder. And you can bet that Saber Jr. knows that all too well. And if there's anyone who can smell weakness and target it, it's Saber Jr. So from a physical aspect, this match is very intriguing because you've got less than 100% Michael Oku, and you've got someone who thrives on picking apart their opponents like Saber Jr. Saber Jr. is the most dangerous striker that Revolution Pro Wrestling's ever seen, but he's also the most proficient at the submission game. So and he had a stranglehold over that undisputed British Heavyweight Championship for a very long time. And you say Michael Oku wants to transition to becoming the guy, and if he's going to become the guy, he needs to compete and beat people like Saber Jr. And Michael says, listen, Zach, you ran away. You never came back straight after the pandemic. And it was left on the shoulders of people like myself, people like Ricky Knight Jr., to carry this promotion. And then when things get better, things get settled, you know, the crowds are back in, the pandemic is just a horrible, distant memory. That's when you decide to come back. And Michael Oku believes that Zach has, you know, come back to take credit for that fact when Oku feels the hard work was done on his back. So there's that personal aspect to it as well. And perhaps there's also an ego aspect of it. Ego or heart, I don't know. Or confidence, you know. And Zack Sabre Jr. isn't going to like being called out by anyone. We saw how he responded to Leon Slater. And I think that was Zach just getting started. He pronounced he was back in Revolution Pro Wrestling, and he's back for matches like this because he wants to test himself against the very best. And let's not forget, Zack Sabre Jr., the New Japan World Television Champion right now. And that could come into play. Obviously, it's a non-title match, which means there's going to be a longer time limit. Zack Sabre Jr. has been used to working 15-minute time limit matches, which dictates a certain pace. And that's what Zach will have been training for and sparring for, etc. Because he has to defend that championship on a very regular basis. So will the longer this contest go favor Michael Oku? Another question mark. But listen, at its most basic level, these are the two of the best wrestlers on the planet right now, and they're competing for us in a first-time contest at York Hall Bethnal Green, and it's going to be one that you don't want to miss.
Yeah, while Michael physically won't be 100%, his heart is always there. He never gives less than 100% mentally when he goes into the ring. So that is a match that just speaks for itself. Two of the best in the world going at it under the Revolution Pro Wrestling banner. Where else are you going to see that? Moving on, we have a new match to announce. We've seen in their recent encounters, Sky Smithson just unable to get one up on Danny Luna. Consecutive losses. The last one, the most controversial to date, a count-out loss, which was this close. If you rewatch the tape, there's milliseconds between that suicide dive and the count-out. Sky Smithson absolutely furious. But this Sunday, York Hall Bethnal Green, her hometown, she gets a final chance against the reigning Queen of Southside champion, Danny Luna. We'll see if on that night, Danny Luna pretends she's from Bethnal Green as well.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I think that you put it right when you say this is Sky Smithson's final chance at that Southside Women's Championship. Of course, there's a lot of speculation. Alex Windsor has had another injury setback, so our best wishes go out to the British Women's Champion, Alex Windsor. There's going to be an announcement made about that championship soon. Of course, you know, we know that the end destination was to try and unify those championships. So there'll be news on that soon. But in the meantime, the Southside Women's Championship has really taken center stage in Revolution Pro Wrestling, and Danny Luna's done a great job of champion in really legitimizing that championship, shall we say, taking on any and all comers. And yes, the Sky Smithson was able to get a rematch, well, by imposing her will on Danny Luna after that contest against Becca at the 229. But in that first contest that Sky Smithson had with Danny Luna, you know, it was as close a free count as you're going to get. Sky Smithson protesting that she kicked out before the free count. VAR would suggest otherwise, but you know, we don't have VAR and RevPro. Referees calls final. It turns out the referee's call was right on that occasion, but it didn't settle anything, did it? That 1-2-3 in Cardiff didn't settle anything. The women kept fighting, and then, like you say, another victory for Danny Luna, but you know, another area of complaint for Sky Smithson, losing via count out. And of course, Sky was very close to beating that count back in the ring. Danny Luna pulled her out. And then as Sky was come back in the ring, the referee got to 10. Danny Luna straight away dove on Sky, and the fight continued. So, you know, there's a lot of bad blood between these two women. Both feel they're the best in the division right now. Both feel they have a point to prove to the other. Danny Luna feels she's not getting Sky Smithson's respect. You know, and you know, if she was on the other foot, Gideon Grave, a Legion, they would just say a win is a win is a win. You know that for a fact. So Danny Luna feels she's not getting the respect she deserves as champion, and she gets a chance to make a statement. Both women going to be looking for a statement victory. They don't want to leave question marks after this contest on Sunday, March 26th. They don't want to leave any question marks. Danny Luna wants to prove she is the best. She is the better woman, and Sky Smithson wants to prove vice versa. So, it's they're two hard-hitting women. They're going to go to war this Sunday at York Hall, Southside Women's Championship on the line. It promised to be quite a spectacle. I think both, like you say, both women looking for that statement win. Expect fireworks.
Absolutely. Danny Luna will be looking to make it back-to-back victories at York Hall, and Sky Smithson looking to finally have that gold around her waist. It's going to be a clash of two of the strongest and most dominant women we've had in RevPro in quite some time. Over the past few months in Revolution Pro Wrestling, we've seen that Dan Maloney has been fighting for his match with Will Osprey at York Hall. He had to pass 4 tests set by the United Empire's Will Osprey and Lord Gideon Grey, and he passed with flying colours. Tsuji, Irie, Morris, Oku. He had his date with Destiny at York Hall. The super fight was scheduled. However, Will Osprey suffered a separated shoulder, and that match has been put on hold. However, he will not be without an opponent because the United Empire's Francesco Akira has stepped up to the plate. Now, another twist in the tale for Dan. I know it's heartbreaking for him. It's heartbreaking for everyone who wanted to see Dan and Will at York Hall. However, if you've seen Francesco Akira's body of work, especially at York Hall, you know this one is still going to be a super fight.
Yeah, it's going to be a super fight. It's going to be a special fight. It's, between two of the very best who are looking to have a point to prove to the wrestling world. But listen, I think there's way more to this than two great professional wrestlers going to war. As you alluded, Dan Maloney has been on somewhat of a trial by fire, if you will, over the last several weeks, set out by Will Osprey, set out by Gideon Grey, the United Empire. They seem to have a keen interest in Dan Maloney, and Will Osprey trying to get in ahead of Dan Maloney. This all started when Will said to Dan stepped up to Will, and Will said to Dan, look, this isn't the first time but I've seen you. I saw you jumped me in the empty arena, and I thought that, we were going to be on a date with destiny with one another. We were going to meet somewhere in the not too distant future, but it never happened. Why? Because you slipped at the final hurdle. You were essentially your own worst enemy. You got inside your own head. You let your temper get the better of you. You weren't able to control your emotions. You're saying you're still not controlling your emotions right now. And he's saying, Dan, if you can get through these 4 opponents, then you get a date with a Billy Goat at York Hall, Bethnal Green, and you get the chance to prove to the world you are what you say you are. But you got to get through those challenges. And he said the reason he wanted him to go into those challenges was not to soften Dan up. Yes, there's going to be an element of physical wear and tear, but he had the philosophy of iron sharpens iron. He wanted Dan to be competing against the very best. He wanted Dan to be competing against stylistically different opponents, one from the next. And he wanted Dan to have to be able to ride a wave of emotions while seeing the end goal in sight. And perhaps the biggest masterstroke of Gideon Grey was making that final opponent being Michael Oku, a man who will never give up, who will never back down. And Dan Maloney had to show some real killer instinct, those words again. He had to show some real killer instinct in defeating Michael Oku. And now he finds himself in a position where he's just about to have that contest with Will Osprey. News comes back from Japan that Will's been going just as hard as Dan Maloney in the lead up to this contest. News comes back from Japan that Will Osprey is injured. And now all that focus, that pure focus from Dan Maloney, that tunnel vision, something that perhaps Dan Maloney's lacked in Revolution Pro Wrestling. That tunnel vision, that focus on one goal and one goal only. He's been training diligently for it. He's been working hard for it. Mentally and physically preparing for that war with Will Osprey, and all of a sudden the rug gets pulled from beneath his feet. How's he going to respond to that? Perhaps this is the biggest challenge of them all. And we know at some point down the line there's going to be a contest between Osprey and Maloney, and when that time comes it's going to be great. But look, first of all, Dan Maloney needs to get through Francesco Akira, and he needs to get through Akira without that end goal, without knowing March 26th, if I win this match, I'm going to go up against Will Osprey. The whole wrestling world's going to be watching. Well, listen, the whole wrestling world's going to be watching this one as well. And Dan Maloney needs to not slip up on the big stage like we've seen him do in the past. Physically, I believe he can do it. Mentally is another thing altogether. And when you talk about mentality, look at Francesco Akira, one half of the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champions, alongside TJP, of course, a member of the United Empire, scouted in Revolution Pro Wrestling. And listen, Akira, since joining the United Empire, he has all the traits that Will Osprey said he was trying to get out of Dan Maloney in the lead up to that potential match between the pair. So, you know, it's Dan's going to have to fight something that he needs to be if he's going to take it to the next level. And since joining the Empire, Akira's grown in confidence. He runs through opponents. He's more aggressive. He has that killer instinct, you know. And Dan Maloney is going to be in for the fight of his life. And again, a completely stylistically different opponent to anyone he's faced over the past few weeks in the lead up to the preparation for tonight. So, or for for this Sunday. So to me, I'm very excited for this contest. They're two of the very best. They've got a point to prove. And there is that extra air of tension. You know, there is that big fight feels, which seem to give everyone a little bit of extra spring in their step. And there's going to be so much adrenaline going through both men's body. And, you know, I think that this one has show stealer written all over it.
100%. And it's like you said, the opponent may have changed, but the test remains the same. Can Dan Maloney keep his head cool? Can he keep his head in the game? One more match before we get to the Rumble, and it's the match that Ricky Knight Jr. has wanted, and he's got it. He keeps saying, I never lost my championship. I never lost at your call. So he has the opportunity to regain that undisputed British Heavyweight Championship when he goes up against the undisputed British Heavyweight Champion, United Empire's Dominator Great O-Khan. And we have seen how absolutely livid Ricky Knight Jr. has been. He's been taking it out on his opponents and sometimes even his teammates. So when he gets in the ring with Great O-Khan on Sunday, I wouldn't like to be Dominator Great O-Khan.
Yeah, Ricky Knight Jr. has been another combustible element in this road to the Revolution Rumble, hasn't he? When you talk about emotions running high, Ricky Knight Jr. has been, understandably, a foul mood since losing that undisputed British Heavyweight Championship without being pinned. Of course, it was his uncle Zach who wound up losing to Great O-Khan at York Hall. And another key word, undefeated Great O-Khan. He has run through everyone in Revolution Pro Wrestling. Will Ricky Knight Jr. be the man to end that undefeated run in RevPro of the Dominator Great O-Khan, the United Empire's Dominator Great O-Khan? And look, all we need to do is look back at the build towards that uprising show where Ricky Knight Jr. was unfortunately injured and couldn't take part in it. But, you know, look back to the build. It was undefeated versus undisputed. And in the lead up to that contest, Great O-Khan pinned Ricky Knight Jr. Ricky Knight Jr. can't say he's ever done the same to the Great O-Khan. So already mental advantage to Great O-Khan, champion's advantage to Great O-Khan as well. Ricky Knight Jr. has to beat Great O-Khan. Great O-Khan doesn't have to beat Ricky Knight Jr., but you know he's going to do everything in his power to put RKJ down. You know, this is going to be two stubborn men going to war, both with a point to prove to each other. Great O-Khan's heard the smack that Ricky Knight Jr. has spoken about him. I'm sure it's been translated a lot worse by Gideon Gray, and it was very bad to begin with, you know? And I think Great O-Khan's going to be fired up. I know Ricky Knight Jr. is going to be fired up. Undisputed British Heavyweight Championships on the line. The key is for that word, undisputed, to be true at the end of the night. We want an undisputed champion. Whether it's Great O-Khan or Ricky Knight Jr., something has to give. And will it be the Great O-Khan's undefeated streak? Because I can't emphasize enough the impressive run that Great O-Khan's been on in Revolution Pro Wrestling. So, you know, it's a tough task for Ricky Knight Jr., but he's not one to back down. And, you know, he's probably, I'm going to, without, when was the last time Will Osprey was pinned in a Revolution Pro Wrestling ring? You know, you'd have to get on your cage match match guides to go through that, you know.
And then once you know what matches to watch, you can go back and watch them on
On RevPro on demand.
RevProOnDemand.com.
That's right. But like seriously, like if you look at the last contest of 2020 that he participated in, he won the British Heavyweight Championship against Saber Jr. And then the next time he was pinned was Ricky Knight Jr. pinned him in that tag team match at our Empty Arena shows. And the only man who's pinned him since that point is Ricky Knight Jr. And that's the impossible task. Impossible task that Ricky Knight Jr. stood up to. And he completed. He took it in his stride. Can he do the same against the great OConnor?
Well, one thing is for certain. When the dust settles after that match, there will be no question as to who is the true, and keyword, undisputed British heavyweight champion. And whoever ends the night as undisputed British heavyweight champion is going to have a target on their back, because 30 men are going to compete in the Revolution Rumble, and the winner gets any epic encounter of their choosing. And while they could choose any match, you've got to argue at least 90% of them are going to call their shots at the undisputed British heavyweight championship if they win that match.
Well, yeah, different things for different needs, I guess. You know, it's impossible to call, and you do think that if they get a shot to call, it's going to be undisputed British heavyweight championship. Of course, you look at weight classes. You know, if a cruiserweight wins the match, maybe they'll be favouring a cruiserweight championship match. Especially, you know, if Great Okon's still the champion, look at the size of the man. They might not fancy that undefeated streak. There might also be personal grudges. I know there's at least one man has privately said to me, if I win the Rumble, I'm going to have a no-holds-barred grudge match with Gideon Gray, with the Legion and the United Empire Bard. So, do you know what I mean? There are different things for different people. And of course, there's also tag teams in this Rumble as well, which makes it so intriguing, because traditionally it's every man for himself. But, you know, the Greedy Souls proved at St. Neots, if they work as a team, they can beat anyone. And perhaps they could take advantage of the fact that, you know, the likes of your singles competitors who have got that tunnel vision towards that undisputed British heavyweight championship, and you know, they're going to be fighting each other because there can be only one. Perhaps Greedy Souls can take advantage of that situation. You know, I saw Chuck Mambo tweeting some Steiner math about how you know, the Sunshine Machine stand a better chance of winning than most because there's two of them, you know. And what would Sunshine Machine want? Would they call their shot for another shot at the British Tag Team Championships? Would one of them want to go for singles gold? You know, it's very interesting, you know, and there's going to be wrestlers who are aligned with one another who, you know, might be working together, so to speak. So the strategy that one takes in the Rumble environment is always very, very interesting. Look, this isn't about having to pin your opponent for the count of three or trying to submit your opponent. We've seen in some of those big tag team matches that we've been doing with the over the top ropes eliminations employed in them as well. We've seen how easily people can get eliminated by being thrown over the top rope. And I think that makes it very impossible to call a winner, no matter how determined the men are who are entering this contest. And to make things clear, it is an over the top rope elimination match. Eliminations occur by being thrown over the top rope, both feet touching the floor, and we're going to have entrance into the ring every 2 minutes. So, you know, there's a lot of time to work between entrance. This match is going to go over an hour by its very definition. And it's going to be one of the most physically intense matches in Revolution Pro Wrestling history, with a huge reward at the end for a winner. And, you know, like I say, I think it's impossible to call. And there are many different stories going into this one.
Well, you've already alluded to the number of tag teams that are going to be in this Rumble. Will they work together? Will alliances fall apart? But there's one man in this Rumble who isn't just fighting for an epic encounter. He is quite literally fighting for his career, because Eddie Dennis has said, if I do not win the Revolution Rumble, I will retire from professional wrestling. Now, he's been radio silent since he said that. Michael Oku hasn't heard from him. His closest friends haven't heard from him. No one on the Revolution Rumble has heard from him. So we can only assume he is grinding away, training with everything he has, because when he steps into the ring on Sunday, the 26th of March, he is quite literally fighting for his career.
Yeah, and listen, that's what he said he was going to do. He said he needed to go away. He said he needed to prepare for this contest, and he needs to treat it like the biggest match of his life. Because his wrestling career literally depends on it. We spoke about the high pressure on Dan Maloney's shoulders earlier on about getting into winning those 4 matches to get that match on the card at Revolution Rumble. Well, Eddie Dennis has put a self-imposed weight on his shoulders in terms of putting his whole career on the line if he doesn't win the Rumble match. And he's made it perfectly clear. He says he believes he may not be as good as a Will Osprey. He may not be as good as Great Okoku, as Ricky Knight Jr., but he doesn't need to be as good as those guys every single night of the year. He needs to be as good as those guys on one night. And then, to win the championship. And can he do it? Can he do it? Can he make magic? Because I was at York Hall when Eddie Dennis returned. Obviously, I was there. I'm always there, right? But like the reception, the warm reception that Eddie Dennis received was second to none. And he fed off the energy of that crowd. He was so happy and proud to be back. And he laid out his mission statement that he wants to continue to do this for professional wrestling, which were dirty words, a place he'd come from. He wanted to do it for professional wrestling. And there were times when he doubted himself, but he said competing against Will Osprey lit a fire beneath him, and he can't settle. This wasn't a comeback to be, the Eddie Dennis greatest hits show. This wasn't for him to come and, pass the torch on to all these young up-and-comers. This was about Eddie Dennis proving that he can be a professional wrestler, and on his best night, he can stand up to any wrestler. So this Sunday, he's going to have to stand up to 29 other men. There's intriguing subplots. He trained Michael Okoku and Connor Mills. What's going to happen if they find themselves staring in the face of their trainer? They need to try and win this professional wrestling match. But listen, if they win the match, it's going to mean retiring their trainer. There's people like Gideon Gray who have quite literally put a target on Eddie Dennis's back. And he said, I'm entering the Rumble for the sole purpose of trying to eliminate Eddie Dennis. This is crazy. And this is before and there's people with personal stakes in this, but then there's people with pure business stakes in this. People like Big Damo, people like Gabriel Kidd, people like Luke Jacobs, guys who have that tunnel vision of wanting to be the best. And if you want to be the best, as has been demonstrated time and time again, you have to have killer instinct, even if it means ending the career of someone that you respect. So listen, I don't want to bet against Eddie Dennis. The odds are stacked against him, but we could well be witnessing history. We could well be witnessing the last night of Eddie Dennis's professional wrestling career. And that's just the tip of the iceberg when we talk about the entrance into the Revolution Rumble and how their paths cross and can intertwine with one another. And a big part of this as well is going to be the luck of a draw, because I speak about Connor Mills, I speak about Michael Okoku and Eddie Dennis. They may not even find themselves in the ring at the same time, depending on how the draw goes. So listen, it's your guess is as good as mine, but I'm excited, and there's so many different possibilities, so many lines and paths that could cross one another, and it leads to just this exciting environment, an intense environment. And of course, there's also going to be a wild card or two thrown in, I'm sure, who people won't be preparing for. So it's going to be crazy.
It really is anyone's game. 30 hungry men, one epic encounter on the line. Bridges are going to be burnt, allegiances are going to fall, bodies are going to be flying everywhere. If you haven't got your ticket yet, what are you waiting for? This Sunday, March 26th, York Hall, Bethnal Green. I believe there's literally 10 tickets left. Am I correct in thinking that?
Well, that's a lie. There's a few more than 10, but there's not many left. I could do this promoter hyperbole where I say there's 10 tickets left. Secretly got some more in my back pocket. There's a few more than 10 left, but we're very, very close to being sold out.
There won't be by Sunday.
And yeah, absolutely. This is Thursday when we're recording this. Probably Sunday morning when it's out. No, it's hopefully tomorrow or tonight. I don't know, whatever. taking you behind the curtain here, but like I promise you, we're going to be close to sold out, and I promise you, it's going to be a night you don't want to miss. History will be made, and scores will be settled. And as you alluded to, like rivalries may just be starting. This is like we say, we've tested in these 6 and 8 man tag environments, and we've seen what combustible situations that creates. What's it going to be when 30 men collide? I'm telling you, it's Rumble season, and it is gonna be absolute chaos this Sunday at York Hall, Bethnal Green. And I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend you get yourself to York Hall this Sunday, because there is nothing quite like it.
And as always, if you are mad enough not to be there in person, we will be streaming it live on RevProOnDemand.com. It promises to be.
The signal at York Hall was terrible last time out. We just about got the stream out. So we're working on getting some new technology to, I don't know, link signals together or something. But it's this York Hall show's come too soon. So if you want to guarantee you see it live, be there live, revolutionprowrestling.com. We will try and stream it on RevProOnDemand.com, and it will be available by the end of Monday, guaranteed high quality stream. I say guaranteed, providing there's no technical bugs which like to bite us, always in the most important situations. But yeah, it will be up on Monday, high quality version of a stream on RevProOnDemand.com.
I can really feel the excitement in the air, Andy. Thank you so much for joining us for this Revolution Rumble rundown. And as always, we'll see you at the shows.